All right, good evening and welcome to Living with Uncertainty. We are the cancer support community of Delaware. And if you just a quick, I think most of you know who we are, but just kind of a quick review of who we are. Our mission is to ensure that all people impacted by cancer are empowered by knowledge, strengthened by action, and sustained by community. And we do this through three main aspects of programming, which are support groups, healthy lifestyle classes, and then education programs. And tonight is an example of one of our education programs. I'm Erica Narducci. I am the program director for Cancer Support Community Delaware. And joining me tonight for the presentation, I have two of my interns, Carolyn and Michael, and they're going to introduce themselves. So Carolyn.
Hello, I'm Carolyn. I am currently an MSW student, so I'm getting my Master's of Social Work at Fordham University. And I've been with CSC since May, and I'm going to be here until December. So I'm very excited to be here. Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm an intern for mental health counseling at Newman University, and I went back to school, and I've been an intern at the Cancer Support Community from January, and I will be here till December.
Great, thank you. Thank you, interns. All right, so if you would like right now, maybe just grab, if you don't have it nearby, a pencil and paper in case you want to take some notes. I'm also going to ask you to kind of do some reflective thinking. You might want to jot some things down. So maybe just go take a moment and do that while I'm doing an overview. So tonight we're going to cover why you as a caregiver or a patient feel like you are living with uncertainty through a cancer journey. And we're also going to talk about some ways to navigate this. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about change and cancer, common worries, mental health and cancer, acknowledging the known and unknowns, and then a little bit about what's next. So while we may not wish to acknowledge it, uncertainty is a natural and unavoidable part of life. Very little about our lives is consistent or totally certain. Life can change very quickly and very unpredictably. So let's talk about change and cancer. So a diagnosis of cancer brings many changes, whether you're the patient or you're the caregiver. And those areas of change can be physical, emotional, or spiritual. So physical changes, if you're the patient, you certainly probably have experienced some physical changes. It could be hair loss, skin changes, maybe your weight's gone up and down. There's also other physical changes that we don't necessarily see on the outside, and even caregivers can experience some of these. Fatigue, a loss of strength, maybe a loss of mobility. And then think about emotional changes that cancer brings. You may be experiencing vulnerability, feeling nervous, anxiety, or worry, something you didn't have before. You might be feeling overwhelmed. You can also feel down, hopeless, or even depressed. So spiritual changes can happen even if you're not a religious or faith kind of person. We are spiritual beings, so we do question spiritual things like, what is our purpose in life? Maybe you're thinking more about what you believe, examining what really matters to you. Maybe you're searching for meaning. If you're a visual person like me, this may help you kind of understand the physical, emotional, and spiritual, all those changes that are happening. Imagine that you're holding a tray and it has many different glasses on it, and the glasses have different amounts of liquid in it. They might even be different colors. This represents your life. And say someone bumps into you and you spill. Some of them tip over, some of them slosh, some of them might be okay. They just wobble a little. That's kind of like what cancer does to us. It gives us a good bump and things kind of get sloshed up. And everyone's tray is kind of a mess, but it looks different for each of us. Just like our physical, emotional, and spiritual changes are going to look different for each of us. But we all have the universal challenges of cancer that include loss of control, loss of hope, and unwanted aloneness, which often we refer to as isolation. So loss of control, that one's easy to understand, right? Like now you're not in control of your schedule and your date book. Your cancer, your doctor, your treatments, that's in control of your date book. So definitely cancer can make us feel a loss of control. You could feel a loss of hope. I was hoping that retirement was going to include having fun with my grandkids or traveling, or I was hoping to work beyond a certain age, and you have lost the hope to be able to do that. Unwanted aloneness, or this isolation, sometimes it is literally, you need to isolate yourself from other people because you're going through treatment, and you need to keep safe. But it can also look like you could be in a crowded room, many people who know you, love you, care about you, but none of them understand the journey of cancer the way you do as a patient, or you as the caregiver and what you're experiencing. So you can feel very isolated, even though you're surrounded by people that care about you. So what are some of the common challenges and worries? So our national organization did a big survey of cancer patients, and these are some results from that. 53% of patients are worried about the future and what lies ahead. 41% were moderately to very seriously worried about changes or disruptions in work, school, or home life. Nearly 1 out of 2 depleted savings or used money from retirement to cover treatment costs. So almost half financial concerns. And 38% are at risk for clinically significant levels of depression. And while this was just one survey, my experience has been these numbers are probably even a little bit higher for patients. So caregivers, also given a survey by our national organization, said 39% said their health is somewhat or much worse than before they began their caregiving role. 49% reported substantially worse anxiety than the national average. And nearly 1 out of 2 reported at least sometimes experiencing a sense of loss of control over their own life. And remember, these are the caregivers, these aren't even our patients. And then 34% reported substantially worse fatigue than the national average. Common worries are normal reactions to the roller coaster of the cancer experience. And while once upon a time I did enjoy roller coasters, not anymore, and certainly not one with a loop like that. So as a patient, if you're the one with cancer, some of the things you may feel, some of your worries may include being concerned about the future and what lies ahead, having to put plans on hold. Maybe you're worried treatment will stop working, or fearful that cancer could come back, or that your treatment will not work or didn't work. Our caregivers also have common worries. Things like, I've been thrust into this role very unexpectedly. I was not prepared for it. They worry about having to do these tasks alone. They also are fearful about losing someone they love. Also, juggling caregiving duties with other daily activities is a very common worry. And maybe you're still working full-time. That is a lot to manage. Also, caregivers can feel inadequate. They might not have a medical degree or any medical experience, and feel like they're not quite sure how to take care of their loved one. So I want you to just think, what are some of your worries? Did one of the ones I read from these lists resonate with you? Maybe you have one similar that you could add to this list. Those are some heavy thoughts, thinking about all those things that cancer is bringing into our life. So let's pause for just a minute. And think about in the past, before cancer came to your home, how did you cope when you felt uncertain or worried about something? So maybe you went for a walk, maybe you got in your car and drove somewhere, enjoyed nature. Maybe you have a friend that was like the friend you could call and talk to when you're kind of feeling down. Or maybe pet therapy is a thing for you. Maybe you had to give the dog some extra belly rubs or curl up with the cat. So I'm going to just stop talking for a minute, and I want you to think about what are some of those things that have helped you in the past um, that really help you kind of manage when you're feeling uncertain or worried. You could think on your head or maybe just jot it down on your paper.
Erica,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes.
Can you see me? It's Bonnie. No?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. All right, good. Yeah, I just want to check that. Excuse my tardiness. I was a few minutes late.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of joined in there when you were going through you'd already begun your list, and there were many on there that I felt like, but to kind of answer your question, I don't know really, I never thought much about this, but like how I handled past things that I found challenging. I've just never found anything quite as challenging as the position I'm in now. So yes, there were, some difficult times, but you always got over that hurdle no matter what it was. I don't approach things now the way I did then. I'm like a 180. It's like that doesn't apply. Those things do not apply now. So that's out the window. I have to have a whole total new course plotted in how to get through the maze that I'm in now, because I have never been through this maze before. So I can't adequately answer the question you posed.
Yeah. So that's a good point, because hopefully some of those things we've done in the past, which we call coping mechanisms, are helpful and have helped you, but and we can use them now. But we're going to talk about, like you said, sometimes it's such a bigger thing in our life. We're going to need to find some new skills. So great, thank you for that point, Bonnie. I appreciate that. So, and if my notes say to say next, just as I've just said, maybe you realized you might need some new coping mechanisms. And maybe I mentioned something you might want to try. A lot of the healthy lifestyle classes we offer, that's one of the reasons we offer it, not only because of the way it helps you physically and emotionally, but also it can become a tool in your toolbox of coping mechanisms. Maybe through yoga or Tai Chi, you've learned a new way to breathe or a better way to relax yourself. We have the art classes and the writing classes that, maybe that's something you can connect with and use. And maybe it's a combination of all those to help you. All right, so let me jump ahead to mental health and cancer. So let me start by just defining what we're going to talk about. First of all, distress. So stress is a normal part of every day, and stress sometimes motivates us to get things done and to do our daily functions. But too much stress leaves us in distress. So that's what distress is, like just overpressured of stress for too long. Our coping mechanisms that we were just talking about, and much as Bonnie mentioned, they're under pressure for too long and we can feel overwhelmed. So anxiety is defined as a sense of fear or a sense of dread that something terrible is going to happen. And that might be very, very realistic that that could happen, but it could also be, not realistic that it can happen, but the reality that there is fear there causes anxiety. And then depression is a mood disorder that is characterized by persistent sadness and a loss of interest. So let's talk about each one of those a little bit deeper. So every patient is going to experience distress, no matter what stage of cancer you're in, what type of treatment you're getting, you are going to deal with some distress. And the most predictable stress points for us in a cancer journey are when we're first diagnosed, when perhaps the cancer has returned, also when we're making decisions about treatment. And that's not always at the beginning of treatment. It can also be, somewhere else along the line if treatment isn't working and we have to make another decision. Also, when we're getting a scan, we often refer to it as scanxiety, anxiety about the scan. And again, it can be at the beginning of treatment. It can be anywhere along the treatment trajectory. It can be years after you have had cancer. Anxiety and fear are very common reactions to any stressful life experience, but especially cancer. And studies show that about half of cancer patients say they feel some sort of anxiety. And I have to agree with something Carolyn said earlier today when we were reviewing this. I think that number is higher. Half doesn't seem like quite enough. But the symptoms that you might experience if you've had anxiety or fear, you might feel panic or constantly anxious. You could also have an anxiety attack, which often feels like a heart attack. Let's talk a little bit about depression. Again, it's a mood disorder that about a quarter of cancer patients experience, and it affects cancer patients 2 to 3 times more than our general population because of the just amazing journey you're having to go on. And I don't mean amazing in a good way in that sentence. And it is an equal opportunity offender for both men and women. But having cancer does not mean that you can expect or accept feeling depressed all the time, because it is treatable. So the symptoms you may feel that if you're thinking maybe I'm feeling some depression, the big one is losing interest in things you usually enjoy and that lack of motivation. You can also experience changes in sleep, appetite, motivation. But the evidence-based best practice is therapy and medication. But it's going to be a different prescription for everyone and a different combination there. And if you're thinking, I don't want to take medication, I'll be stuck on medication for life, I don't want to go down that road. I just want to encourage you, if you really are experiencing a high amount of anxiety or depression, there is a place for medicine, and it doesn't have to be forever. There is no magic pill for curing these things, but what we often say is that it softens the curve. So especially with depression, our emotions can be really high and then or a normal high and then low, and we can have long lows and kind of up and down, up and down. So what medication does is help kind of soften that drop so you don't drop as far with your emotions and it's not as long. So it's a softer curve. So again, doesn't cure it, but in the right combination can really be helpful. So what are the knowns and the unknowns? There are many what ifs that come when it comes to living with or supporting a loved one with cancer. Acknowledging the unknowns of cancer may make you feel many emotions, maybe anxious, angry, sad, afraid, and one we've mentioned before, not in control, the loss of control. So it's important for us to recognize there are situations you can control and those that you cannot. Many people find it helpful to let go of the things they cannot change and focus on the things they can. So I love this diagram. I think it's helpful for me in my own life in thinking about things outside of my control and then things that are inside my control that I can focus on. So for example, we have no control over our diagnosis, but we can control how we respond to it, whether it's for ourselves or a loved one. We have no control over the future, but we do have control over our communicating of feelings and of needs. We can't really control the responses of those around me, but we can control decisions about our actions today and how we respond. And then treatment recommendations often are really outside of our control. What's available for our particular cancer, there's only going to be so many choices. So we can't control that, but we can control how much we learn about it, how much we're educated on what's coming, and how much we are involved with our doctor and our oncology team. So I did an interview with a cancer patient who actually a 4-time cancer survivor recently. And on his 4th cancer, he was told he needed to have a certain chemotherapy drug. And so he did a lot of research about the drug before getting it. And they signed him up to have it as an infusion. And this is an infusion where you get a pack that they put on you, and you wear it as a pump for 3 to 4 days. It's loud, you have to sleep with it on. He was very concerned about how this would impact his quality of life. And he found that the same drug was available as a pill, orally. And so he asked his oncologist, so could I get the oral pill instead? And the oncologist said, there's no reason why you can't. The reason why we give the pump is because people find it easier than taking a pill. But he was able to because he had learned a lot about the treatment and investigated himself and advocated for himself. He said, you know what, for me, the pill's going to be a lot easier than this thing, even though it's only for a couple days. So he was able to, within the confines of things he couldn't control, find something he could control. And that is very important, because when we focus on what's outside of our control, it leads us to worry. And the definition of worry is a state of anxiety or uncertainty over actual or potential problems. So focusing on the here and now and what I can control is not an easy task, but it is one that is helpful for us through our cancer journey. So practicing mindfulness is one way that can be helpful in allowing ourselves to let go of what we cannot control, so that we can then focus on what we can control and focus on what's in the present. So we're going to pause and practice a little mindfulness with Michael.
Well, thank you. I would like to read something about guided meditation. And it's really a place to go, a calm place to go in your mind. So I'm going to ask you to just think, let everything else go, just reflect, maybe close your eyes. I'll remind you to open them. And let your mind just wander in a place of peace. Bring to mind a place that you have either been or would like to go, to that very peaceful and very calm place. Often people pick a place in nature, somewhere that they would either like to go or have been, that feels settling and calming. When this place is cleared in your mind, fire up your 5 senses, and in your mind, look around this place and see the landscape, see the colors, see the textures. Notice if the sun is shining or if it is shady, becoming aware of what you would see as you look around. Next, bring awareness to the sounds you hear, the sounds that are close up and the sounds that you would hear at a distance. Take in any scents and smells that are in this calming place. Next, I'd like you to take a moment and imagine what this place would feel like on your skin. Are you in the sunlight or the shade? Is it warm, humid, or is it cool and brisk? Is it windy? So just take a moment to imagine what it would feel like to be in this place. So now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And now I like to take just another moment to absorb anything else that feels particularly calming and soothing from this calm place. Now open your eyes. And we'll close this practice, with 3 soothing inhales and exhales. So I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath. And if you feel uncomfortable, take your camera, turn it off. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths, inhale and exhale. So number 1, and exhale. Number 2, and exhale. And number 3, inhale and exhale. And thank you for taking this moment to have some guided meditation. And now on to the next slide.
Thank you, Michael. It's wonderful when we engage all of our senses in our mindfulness practice, and it can really help us break that anxiety or worry chain. So you're probably thinking, I know I'm living with uncertainty. What you're talking about resonates with me. So what's next? What am I going to do? You can practice some mindfulness like we just did there. But maybe what's next for you is making plans for the future, making changes that are important to you or your loved ones. Maybe you want to start a new hobby. Maybe you want to set new goals, different goals or priorities, and that could include more time with friends or family, or something that really matters. Focus on what really matters to you and thinking that through. Maybe completing a project. That can really feel, like a great sense of accomplishment. And some of these things, suggestions, they include putting our focus on something different. And this one's my favorite. Keep moving ahead one step at a time. The first time I trained for a long run, it was very difficult for me on the days I did my longer runs because I kept thinking about how far away it was till I was going to be done. But I started using a little mantra that was just keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it was so helpful for me. And it took my mind off that how far away the end really was and focusing on the right in front of me and just getting through what's right in front of me. Another expression we love in our family is, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time. So just focusing on what's here and getting through it one bite at a time. So for each of you, changes you decide you might want to make, or maybe you're going to decide not to make any changes right now, it's going to be a very personal one. And there's no right answer that fits every person. Maybe what's next for you is you might need to reach out to someone. If you find you're extremely anxious about the future, you can reach out to a trusted friend, maybe a clergy person or mental health professional or someone on your cancer team. Some fears and some concerns may actually be unfounded, and you may be able to clear them up just through a better understanding of what's going on and your treatment. If you're worrying most of the day, most of the days of the week, or worry gets in the way of doing things that you need and want to do, if you have that feeling where you just want to get in bed and pull the covers over your head more often than not, I really recommend you contact your healthcare provider so that we can get you connected with a trained psychologist or a licensed mental health counselor. I'm happy to connect you to some of the local resources we have, or help you get in a support group or some of the healthy lifestyle classes we have as well. Because like we said before, you do not have to stay depressed or stay anxious through this journey of cancer. We can help you through it. So we're going to go into a time of final reflection, and I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn.
So we've kind of been talking about different ways that you can try to take care of yourself or adjust to your new normal as you're going through this hard process and feeling uncertain. And one of the ways that we can do this is through self-care or simply taking care of yourself. So there's actually 8 different dimensions of wellness, which I think most people, when they think of your body or health, you think of your physical body and you think of your mind or your mental health. But there really is more. There's people have intellectual needs, which could be things like a podcast or watching a show or a documentary you really enjoy, or reading a book. Financial needs, feeling more clear about how cancer may be affecting different areas of your finances and getting some clarity around that. Environmental, emotional, spiritual, which we kind of already talked about a little bit already, social, physical, and also career, depending on where you are in that continuum. But self-care can look like a lot of different things. In this area of new normal and uncertainty, it's going to depend on your energy. It's going to depend on what makes you personally feel calm. What works for someone else may not work for you, and that's totally fine and normal. And just also thinking about your health overall, whether it's, if you need to take a nap, take a nap. That's something that's really hard for some people, or maybe they don't enjoy naps, but if your body's asking for it, maybe that's something we need to add to the routine. It doesn't have to be forever. It may just be during treatment or on certain days of treatment, but sometimes we need to be a little bit flexible with what our body needs versus maybe what our level of independence or our past self may have done. So different ways of also doing this could just be moving your body. Like Erica was saying earlier, through our yoga classes, if you can't do gentle yoga, maybe it's chair yoga for a little bit. Tai Chi, the Live Strong program, which is through the Y. We have a lot of participants in Delaware who participate in that and really enjoy the program and its adaptability. It could be as simple as walking. Even, you don't have to be going up hills. Just take a short walk around your neighborhood. Any kind of movement often can help with fatigue and things like that over time. Creativity is a big one, whether that's drawing or painting or even taking photos on your phone. Decorating your house. I mean, you're already in it sometimes anyway. Start with where you already are. Listening to music. Reflecting, whether that's being nostalgic and looking at old photos or videos, showing gratitude, journaling, using positive affirmations. Dreaming, like we mentioned earlier, whether that's planning a vacation. Now, a lot of people, when we say this, they're like, well, that's not possible right now. Maybe financially it's not possible, but it could be a staycation. It could be going down the road or staying with a family friend or even a friend for a weekend. It's adaptable, just finding something to look forward to and that maybe breaks up what your normal routine can be. And then lastly, spiritual or sensory. This could look like praying, observing nature, walking warriors on Fridays, guided meditation, taking a bath. Everyone, I think, normally thinks of taking a bath when they think of self-care, but some people would prefer a shower. And lastly, working in the garden or the yard. I've heard this a lot from a lot of participants that that's the thing for them, and not necessarily because of the sensory elements, but also the level of independence. I used to do this before cancer, so it's important that I can still do some aspect of this with cancer. So just kind of thinking a little bit differently about maybe the things you used to do in the past that brought you a lot of joy and, really just made you feel good about yourself and what you were doing. Just adapting it to where you are. Like Erica said earlier, it doesn't mean that it'll be this way, forever. It could just be a temporary change, but seeing it a little differently may bring you a little bit more of temporary joy. So.
Great. All right. Thank you, Carolyn. So we're at the end, and I just want to let you know, I want to thank my interns. They had some great suggestions and some different tools you can put in your toolbox of taking care of yourself and helping you navigate this time. We are going to send out an email tomorrow that will have copies of the presentation and some of the resources that were mentioned, and Carolyn put together a great little thing on self-care that we will include for you. So if you're thinking about, what are those coping mechanisms I need? to add to what I have. You'll have some suggestions in front of you. So we're going to take a time for questions in just a minute, but I just want to mention that I'm going to stop the live stream and the recording of the program first. And if you're watching the recording and you want to reach out to me, there is my contact information if you need connection to other resources or would like to get plugged into some of our programs. So let me, I am stopping the live stream if I can figure out